So you guys have seen multiple times on this channel videos about my son's truck. It's a 3rd gen, I think it's a 98 4Runner Limited. We've done a lot of different things to the thing, a lot of repairs, some upgrades, but my son has decided to take the plunge and put a good suspension system on the old 4Runner. So his current setup, I believe he has some Toy-Tech springs up front and some Bilstein adjustable 5100 shocks. And then out back, I know he's got the Bilstein 5100 shocks, and I think there's Toy-Tech springs out back, which is a 2-inch spring in the back. He wanted to invest some good money and some good equipment on this, and I think he did all right. So let's check it out and see what he got. So he decided to go with Micon. I've ran some of their stuff on previous vehicles. I've had good luck with it. Up front, he got the 2.5 coilovers. They're adjustable. And first impression of these things, they are stout. The tube on these things are just massive, and the shaft, everything is very, very stout on these things. So this is what he decided to run with. As far as upper control arms, currently he has the stock upper control arms. These are the extended travel coilovers from Micon. So he went with I don't know if Micon calls this a uniball or not, but that ball joint will allow a little more front droop as those shocks come down. These things are just stout. Very, very beefy, very impressed. I mean, so that's what he's gonna run up front. In the rear, you got some, again, just some 2-inch lift springs in the rear with some Micon 2.0 shock reservoirs. I believe he said the spring rate on these was 700, so it might be a little stiff for what we're running. So we're gonna do a little comparison. We're gonna run through some paces with his current setup with the Bilstein and the Toy-Tech springs and the stock upper control arms, and we're gonna do a little flexing, you know, and run it through some bumps. We'll see. And like I said, those front springs are very, very stiff on this current setup. So, and then we're gonna come back, we're going to install all this equipment, and then we're gonna go back out, try to run it through as close as we can to the same paces that we did with the current setup and see what comes up. It may be incredibly impressive, it may not be all that impressive. So, but either way, we're gonna do it. So stick around, let's do this thing. Well, we made it out to the wonders of Arizona desert. So we're gonna do a little preliminary testing. Like I said, I think these are the Bilstein 5100 adjustables on here with some, I think they're 800-pound Toy-Tech springs. The rear, a Toy-Tech coil spring in the rear with, looks like he's got Toy-Tech, some sort of Toy-Tech shocks. We got a couple of tests set up. Don't know if it'll make any difference. Don't know if it'll show anything, but at least we're gonna have fun trying. Test number 1. What we're gonna do is we're gonna put this water bottle in this cup holder, and we're gonna see how much water is left after driving on this dirt here. Now, it's not crazy bumpy, but these springs and shocks that he has on here, this should show pretty positive result once we switch everything over. So let's get this going, let's see what happens. Okay, so the result wasn't as bad as we thought. I thought this thing might empty like half of this water bottle, so it wasn't too crazy. We got a little wet here, but not all that bad. Okay, moving on. I think what we're gonna do, we're gonna get it to flex a little bit, and then maybe some little more intense bumps and see what happens. All right, so he's got her in this little ravine here. The back, oh, she's stuffed. That is a big meal right there. We've got some good distance. We didn't really have any issues with the rear of this truck. It's primarily the front. So as you can see, it's not stuffing this front tire at all. I'm gonna measure this and see what kind of distance we have right here, and then measure the other side, and we'll do this exact same thing once we switch the suspension over and see if it makes any difference. Okay, this is what we're looking at. Yeah, we got like 4.5 something. Okay, so now let's go over here and measure the other side. Okay, so we got about 9.5 inches right there of droop down. The control arm, it's not touching that spring, but she's pretty close. That ball joint's pretty much maxed. Moving on, let's see if we can find some whoops or something. All right, a little high-speed whoop action here. Not bad, actually. Looks smooth from the outside. I don't know what it was like inside.
That's a good one.
All right, guys, so that concludes our desert testing. So let's go back, install some real suspension, and see if it makes any difference. We'll see. Hang around, find out. Well, we're back at the shop. It's time to install these parts. We'll do a little walkthrough briefly on how to get some of this stuff installed, and then we'll go back out, give it another go. Okay, so starting on the install here, remove the tire and wheel. He had some wheel spacers on here. We also removed those. Since we're doing the upper arms, the way these ball joints are, it is pressed into the spindle here and it goes up into the control. Now we have to press in this little thing they gave us into here, because these new upper arms, as you can see, their ball joints are mounted in the upper arms, but it appears they give you this here to put into the spindle to receive this ball joint shaft right here. So to take the spindle off, guys, take your brakes off, take your axle nut out, and then there is 4 bolts on the bottom for your lower ball joint. Right here, there's 2 on this side and 2 on the other side of that ball joint. You're gonna take those 4 off, and then you're gonna take this upper castle nut off and some of these little brackets here. Axle nut, brakes, don't disconnect your brake line, just hang the thing off to the side. Upper castle nut, 4 lower ball joint bolts, then your spindle should be free and clear. Change out the coilover here and get this upper arm swapped out. Like I said, this is the hardware kit they give you. So these, they give you like a 2-piece bushing here. It just pushes in. You can do it by hand on each side. So those push in, and then they give you, obviously, you're gonna do a washer on each side when you go to install these. And it's a pretty simple process there. Got some other hardware here. Looks like we got some strut bolts, some greasers. I imagine these are these are replacement strut bolts. I'm not really sure what they sent this for yet. Sure, we're gonna find out. If not, if we don't use it, well, then we just did it more efficiently. Okay, so the spindle's off. Axle's pulled out of there. So now the next step, get this big bolt out of this upper control arm. And the way you do that is you have a nut here, and then the bolt heads right here. I think they're like a 17. So obviously you want to put a wrench over here, hold that in, loosen your nut, and this bolt goes all the way through. It's a real long bolt, and you'll have to pull it out from underneath the hood. As you can see it right there, that's the bolt. So once the old upper control arm's out of the way, we'll take the strut off. You have 3 strut tower bolts up here, 1 big bolt on the bottom. Pull your strut out, and then we'll start reassembling with much prettier items. Okay, so this is where we're at. Upper control arm's out, strut is out, spindle is off. You can see a little comparison of old versus new. I mean, the quality difference. I mean, there is quite a bit of difference. These Icon stuff is really nice stuff. Just a mere difference here of control arms. Beefcake. When you pull the spindle, the axle out of the spindle, make sure that the axle doesn't pull out. If you start pulling on these axles, they will separate at this joint, and they are a bear to get back in. We're gonna try to get it back in. We're gonna pull the whole thing out, put it on the bench, and try to get it back in. But
now,
hopefully we learned
drive.
we learned something today. I'm trying to let him do most of this stuff, so this was something that I forgot to mention to him. Sometimes those axles splines, they kind of stick in here, especially if you guys live somewhere where it's rusty, like in the Midwest or the Rust Belt. Out here in Arizona, it's not too big a deal. It probably was just a little stuck there, and when he went to pull this spindle off, it pulled the, yeah. All right, guys, so upon putting this new upper control arm in here, they have these gussets welded on these things for strength and rigidity. When you move this up, it seems to rub on this metal wheel well here. So we are going to trim this wheel well out just a little bit here so that doesn't rub on there. Okay, so after trimming, I just took some metal shears, guys. And now we have good clearance, no rubbage. Okay, so we got the old upper ball joint out of the spindle. Not an easy task. So if you guys live in where it's rusty, good luck. Might be worth just buying a different spindle. But we got the ball joint out finally. O'Reilly wrench tools, ball joint presses. It's coming in handy, but I may or may not have tore their press up a little bit. Hopefully they don't charge me for that. Don't forget to put your grease zerks in before your control arm install. Like I said, this comes in 2 parts. One of them's pretty much like a washer. So, and this one is really the main insert here. So I would definitely put this on top because of the fact of the taper ball joint. That's probably the proper way. Weird. I did something proper. Shoo! Oh man, one side complete. Actually wasn't without problems. Mostly, we forgot to route this brake line behind the spindle. So we had to take the brake line off. So now I gotta bleed the brakes. Cause I didn't want to take the spindle back off. When my son put this back together, he forgot to put this bottom washer on here. So we had to take that bolt back off and redo that. That was before we realized the brake line was off. Otherwise we'd have just routed the brake line over there before. And then lining up these bolts on the top was a little bit of a challenge, and along with the bottom one. You kind of, basically the trick is, guys, slide this up in here top first, this top hat. Set your bolts, then use a big screwdriver here on the bottom and just kind of like spin this around this bottom part to where your bolt will line up. Pretty much it, and it is good to go. We're ready to do the other side now. Phew. It took us way too long.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys seen how one side was done. We're working on the other side right now. We'll show you one side on the back when we get there. There's all this fancy hardware in there, and then you back up, and there's like, ooh, yeah.
What are you talking about?
Hey, it's gonna ride nice and perform good. I guess that's what's most important. All right, guys, we're gonna knock this side out. We'll update you when we get to the rear. That'll be pretty simple. How many Toyotas can you fit in this driveway?
We can fit a couple more. We can fit two under the tree.
Well, it's a Thursday night. It's 6:30. My son gives me a ring. We got his front springs on, front suspension done. He's excited. So he takes the truck for a drive, an hour straight out in the middle of the desert by himself. Not a good idea. So we have finally made it to his location. He's got a flat. He's got a spare, but the spare is flat.
I think we could put a plug in that. And
dude. Yep.
She done.
Man, we're out here.
It's abusive.
I couldn't even get the 4th gen up here where he's got this truck. Hey, suspension looks good. Starting to regret my decision of getting my kids into off-roading. The tire is on, and more importantly, it's full of air. Now, our long journey out of here. You know, I'd rather be rescuing my kid doing something like this than if my kid was on drugs or out getting into trouble, and there's a different kind of rescuing going on at that point. So I gotta be thankful that when you get your kids into off-roading, they can't afford things like drugs or girlfriends, because they're constantly busy and constantly broke. Oh yeah, such a lovely sound. All right, time to do the back half. Time to get his rear end jacked up. What I remember, I think we can just take the lower shock bolt off, upper shock bolt off, and I think we can get the spring off, but we might have to take this sway bar off. It looks like it might be holding it in place. Okay, so this is what we got going on here, okay? Hopefully nobody loses a hand out of this deal. We released the sway bar. There's probably an easy way out here. There's some guy, I'm sure, looking at this video, and he's laughing because, like, if you do this or that, and then the next thing you know, the spring pops right out, and they're like, oh, what a bunch of idiots. But we got a jack holding the jack, and the jack is jacking the truck. It's all jacked up. As it just pops out right in my face. Oh, it's gonna knock the jack out. Let me just pry against the jack to get it out. That should do it. There it goes. Okay guys, so obviously this is what you gotta do. It's easy peasy. All you do is unbolt the shock from the top, and then you take 2 jacks, one on the bottom, one here, and you jack up the truck to get the spring out like this between the axle and bump stop here. So let's put the new one in, shall we? What is that? Don't touch it. All right, finally we got the spring and the shock installed. Man, those shock bushings, woo! Those are fun to put in. They're all fresh and not squished. And obviously you saw how fun the spring was to put in. I'm thinking the back was gonna be all fast, easy peasy. But either way, guys, that is it. It's done and in. Now on to the next side, then we'll put it together and go give it a rip out in the desert. Just so you know, on the passenger side, we didn't need our ingenuity jack of all trades, double jack redneck trick. The spring just fell right out. Disconnect the shock, top and bottom, spring falls out. So for whatever reason, you're gonna struggle with the driver's side, or at least we did. Passenger side, easy peasy. All right, guys, slap the wheels back on this disgusting turd, and then this sweet wicked unit.
That's much better.
And then we'll go give her a test run in the desert.